It began as a whisper in the data, an echo in the silence of deep space. Atlas, the asteroid terrestrial impact last alert system, was doing what it always does, watching. Its telescopes swept the skies, hunting for the faint signatures of incoming rocks, cosmic debris, the ordinary hazards of our place in the solar sea. But that night, the system caught something it wasn't designed to see. A shape, a shadow, a presence that didn't belong. At first, it was nothing more than a flicker, a dim movement across the field of stars, smaller than a pixel, slower than a meteor, faster than a satellite. But there was something about the way it moved, smooth, deliberate, patient. It wasn't following the normal dance of gravity. It was choosing its path. Within hours, alerts were spreading through the network of global observatories. Atlas had found something big, and it was close. The first calculations were almost unbelievable. The object was moving between Atlas's observational plane and the Earth itself, well within the boundaries of what should be empty, quiet sky. It was vast, easily hundreds of meters across, perhaps larger. But unlike any comet or asteroid ever seen, it emitted nothing. No tail, no trail of dust, no glow from reflected sunlight. It was, as one astronomer described it, a hole in the stars. Light passed near it and changed, bent, distorted, as if gravity itself were being redirected. Something massive was moving there, something so dense, so dark, that even the instruments designed to catch the faintest glimmers of light struggled to know it was real. When Atlas first detected the anomaly, scientists thought it might be an error, a calibration drift, maybe, or a sensor ghost. But when Pan-STARRS and Catalina confirmed it independently, the doubts fell away. Whatever it was there. And it was getting closer. Night after night, observatories across the planet tracked its motion. At first, it drifted lazily, tracing an impossible orbit that seemed to ignore the gravitational pull of the Moon and Earth. Then, suddenly, it adjusted, its velocity changing in a way no natural object could manage. It wasn't falling. It was navigating. For the first time, scientists began to whisper the unthinkable. Could this be artificial? Could this be alive? To understand why this discovery shook the world's observatories, you have to understand what Atlas watches for. It scans for light that shouldn't move, the faint shimmer of asteroids reflecting the sun's rays as they drift toward Earth. Every signal it captures tells a story of motion, orbit, and time. But this signal didn't tell a story, it hid one. The data came in waves of interference, as though something enormous was bending space around itself, pulling at the invisible threads of gravity. When radar was aimed directly at it, the echoes came back wrong, scattered, like pebbles thrown into a deep, unseen current. At times, the object would vanish completely from detection. Then, hours later, it would reappear, precisely where calculations said it should be, as though nothing had happened. That kind of precision isn't random. It's intention. By the second week, NASA had quietly assembled a task force. They gave it an unassuming name, Project Greywatch. And behind closed doors, the world's best minds began to study what little data they could. Infrared sensors showed something colder than background space. Radar returned almost nothing. Optical lenses caught the faintest glint of structure. Edges, lines, something geometric. Not rock, not ice, not natural. The whispers spread quickly through the scientific community. This wasn't a comet. It wasn't an asteroid. And if it wasn't one of ours, whose was it? It is one of the rarest sensations in science, when the numbers begin to suggest something that feels impossible. The object's path placed it between Earth and Atlas's field of observation, roughly 100,000 kilometers out, closer than the Moon. At that range, anything that large should have been visible to the naked eye, reflecting sunlight like a small star. But there was nothing. The space between Earth and the stars was empty. And yet it wasn't. The gravitational field around the region began to fluctuate. Tiny, almost imperceptible deviations in satellite orbits, shifts so slight they would normally be ignored, were suddenly consistent, predictable, coordinated, as if something invisible were pushing back. For those who saw the data firsthand, There was no longer any question. Something massive was there. Something that shouldn't be. Then, one night, the silence broke. A pulse. Not of light, but of radio. A tight band burst at 1420 MHz, the frequency of hydrogen, the universal marker used by scientists to search for intelligent life. It lasted just seconds. Then it was gone. But when analysts ran the numbers, they found a pattern. Precise intervals of repetition, echoing every 6 hours, each slightly delayed from the one before. Like a heartbeat fading in and out of sync. No known satellite, no known transmission on or around Earth matched it. It came from the object. And worse, it came from the space around it. Like something enormous was cloaked inside a field, emitting only through the edges of its own invisible veil. NASA's public statement was short, almost dismissive. A non-threatening near-Earth anomaly has been detected by Atlas. Current analyses suggest a natural origin. But inside the astrophysics community, the tone was different. There was tension, disbelief, quiet fear. Because the latest orbital models didn't predict the object's trajectory. They followed it. It was adjusting its motion in real time, as if responding to our gaze. And on one particularly long night, the object did something that made even the most skeptical minds fall silent. It stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. Completely motionless relative to Earth. No natural body in the history of observation has ever done that. Planets move. Asteroids drift. Comets race and fade. Nothing just stops. For nearly 11 hours, the anomaly hovered in one position, locked between Atlas's line of sight and our planet. During that time, telescopes recorded something extraordinary. Space around it shimmered. Not visibly, but gravitationally. Light from distant stars bent as it passed near the object, creating ripples of distortion, like reflections on a lake disturbed by unseen wind. The readings suggested it wasn't just massive. It was dense. Far denser than any asteroid or moon fragment could ever be. It was as if a mountain of iron had been compressed into the size of a football field. A localized gravity, well, moving on its own. Speculation spread like wildfire. Was it a rogue black hole? A collapsed fragment of exotic matter? Could it be a fragment of a dark matter core passing through our region of space? Or was it something stranger, still a kind of vessel, using gravitational distortion to move undetected through the solar system? The public never heard these questions. Only a few leaked emails, fragments of encrypted logs, enough to spark curiosity. But for those watching, the truth was even more unsettling than speculation. Because after those 11 hours of stillness, the object moved again. Slowly, deliberately. And for a brief, impossible moment, its trajectory pointed directly at Earth. Emergency meetings followed. For 32 hours, the world's defense networks quietly recalibrated their satellites. No warnings were issued. No statements made. But every radar dish, every high-altitude sensor was turned toward that silent patch of sky. Then nothing. No light. No reflection. No radio pulse. It was gone. As suddenly as it had appeared, the object vanished. In the following weeks, astronomers combed the sky, searching for anything that might explain it. They found fragments of interference in Atlas's older data, small distortions that, when traced backward, formed a pattern. It had been here before, twice, always along the same line between Earth and Atlas's vantage point, always invisible until the very last moment, like something returning to the same position, like a sentinel watching. The gravitational anomalies faded. The radio pulses stopped. But a few days later, a faint optical flare appeared on the far side of the moon, a reflection, brief and precise, as if something large and metallic had caught sunlight for just a heartbeat before slipping away again. By the time telescopes turned, there was nothing. Only the echo of movement. Only silence. Today, the official record lists the event as an unconfirmed observation anomaly. Nothing more than noise, they say. A trick of data. But those who studied it know better. There was weight there, mass and intent, something vast enough to bend space, but careful enough to hide within it. And though it's gone, its absence feels wrong. Too precise. Too quiet. Because space doesn't do quiet. Not like that. There's always motion, radiation, the hiss of the cosmic background. But for 11 hours, between Atlas and Earth, there was nothing. An emptiness so perfect, it felt deliberate. And if it could silence the universe, once it could do it again. Some think it was a probe, an interstellar visitor, sent not to contact, but to observe. Others think it was something older, something left behind from a time before we kept records, before we had names for fear. And a few, those who've seen the data firsthand, believe it was a test, a quiet demonstration of presence. Because in the days that followed its disappearance, something strange happened to our instruments. For a brief time, across observatories in Hawaii, Chile, and South Africa, the Atlas telescopes went blind. Their sensors overloaded by a single unified flash of static, every lens, every feed, white with noise. When the signal returned, the stars came back into focus. But buried in that noise was something no one could explain. A faint modulation, repeating every 14-20 megahertz. Hydrogen song. The same frequency the object had used before. 3 pulses. Then silence. We call the universe a wilderness of emptiness. But sometimes the emptiness watches back. Sometimes the void rearranges itself just long enough to remind us that our understanding of it is a fragile illusion. Something massive moved between Atlas and Earth. Something that shouldn't have existed. And now it's gone. But space has memory. Gravity never forgets. Even now, the faint distortions it left behind ripple through the solar wind. Tiny fingerprints pressed into the dark. Maybe it was a natural anomaly. Maybe it was something ancient, something alive, something waiting to see how we'd react. Or maybe, just maybe, it wasn't coming toward us at all. Maybe it was leaving. And for a brief, impossible moment, it turned its gaze toward us and saw that we were looking back. For that moment, the universe held its breath. And somewhere beyond the edge of sight, it still is.